Getting started with podcasting. What I'm going to look at is who's producing and consuming podcasts, why it's actually an important field and why it's such a popular form of content production, with some stats just generally. Evolution of podcasts over the past couple of years and how it's been lying there under the surface, and then it kind of exploded in 2013 and has just gone from strength to strength and carries on to do so. And then some practical tools and tips that we've found in our early months of producing our own podcasts, which Mark touched on a little. And then some stats that are more relatable of how we've got on as a small business doing our own podcast, starting from scratch, and then hopefully can give you some insight on where we're at. So, quick show of hands on who is listening to podcasts in the room. Good. And who's producing them? 2. A bit. So how often are you?
Right. The quality of the recording is out of our control and that's pretty poor. So it's not worth doing it.
Well, the next bit will probably show that it is, because as you can see, a lot of people are consuming them and not a lot of people are producing them. So some stats of just why it's a good idea to be doing them, even if you're not happy with the perfect audio or imperfect audio. In some format or another, 22.3 podcasts are listened to weekly just in the UK. So that includes things like the podcast that we're producing, Desert Island Discs off Radio 4, Fighting Talk off 5 Live, a DJ mix, an interview, anybody form of podcast. So if you think, and quite a lot of hands went up, I thought I didn't listen to podcasts before I started researching this in the past few months, but actually you do. 2013 saw an explosion in podcasts. I remember listening to the Ricky Gervais show years ago, like 2005, and then not touching podcasts again till the past couple of years. But it seems like everybody did the same thing, because that show was pretty huge, and then in 2013 it grew 40% in interest in podcasts in the UK, people consuming them. And then they reckon that trend's going to carry on going up, that figure of 22.3 million podcasts being listened to a week is going to be 30 million in a couple of years' time, or 2.5 years' time in 2020. And it's just part of a wider on-demand culture for content. Sky Plus, Netflix, Amazon, everything people want to watch is on their own terms now. You download it and wait for it, unless it's a live sporting event or something that you can't avoid the result of. They're the only things that people tend to watch live and at the time these days. And the same applies to music and what is essentially the modern form of radio, which is a podcast. I noticed how big podcasts were when I stumbled across Steve Wright's Sunday Love Songs, and that's available as a podcast. And there's probably me and my grandma listen to that, who I know. But interestingly, on a serious note, Amazon and Google have, in a study I read, have talked about how their home devices, the Alexa and Google Home, are increasing the use of downloads of podcasts. So people are there cooking tea at home, and it's, Alexa, can you play, I don't know, Gary Vee's podcast, whatever it's called, something off the top of your head, something that you regularly listen to, and it's there for 20 minutes whilst you're sorting tea out, washing the pots and pans, and it's playing in the background off the device, and it's streaming music, and then that's the go-to thing, and then people are exploring what else they can listen to out of this device, and a lot of the things people are listening to are podcasts. So much so that those figures of people consuming podcasts have obviously interested big brands and big advertising agencies. So Acast founder Mans Ulverstam, it's a podcast host and provider software, has been talking in a speech pitching for the biggest brands to come and advertise on his space last year on Acast. So when you download a podcast off his platform, there's adverts stuck in there. And the selling point from their point of view is, if somebody's taken the time to download a podcast on their phone, stick their headphones in, and there's a 5-second advert, nobody's going to skip it, because to get your phone out, unlock it, scroll across a bar that's only that big for 5 seconds, by the time you've done all that, the advert's over anyway. So his selling point is to the advertisers, you've got somebody's ear, they're invested in what they're listening in. From our point of view, inbound marketing rather than outbound like that, it means they're actually listening to the content that you're talking about, and they're a lot more engaged because they've taken the time to download it and the effort to listen to it while they're walking the dog or cooking tea at home, that they're going to be actually listening to what you're saying a lot more than if it's just a written blog and they don't get hooked in that first paragraph, close off, go back to Google and find another blog. So a bit about the evolution of podcasts, just to give a sense of scale of how quickly it's grown. 2015, so this is after the explosion, if you will, in 2013 of podcast popularity. The most popular categories on iTunes in 2015 on the left and 2016 on the right. Obviously the topics don't really matter because you'll be talking about your persona's topic and what they're interested in, but what's interesting is the numbers of growth in just 12 months. 23,200 active podcasts in the top category in 2015 per month, and then a year later 39,000, so it's getting up towards double in just 12 months. That's the amount of podcasts that people are listening to on iTunes, and obviously those numbers repeat all the way across. In fact, the gap gets bigger if you look at some of the others. Music podcasts, 13,000 to 33,000 a year later. And the same thing applies if you keep looking down the list. The links are on there if you download the slides when we send them out. Just to give you a sense of scale of how many podcasts are being produced and being consumed, and it's just growing and growing. Yet, same thing happened in Leeds yesterday. 1 or 2 hands go up of who's actually producing them. So there's gaps in your own particular niche. Part of that growth, this slide is from Jenny at HubSpot, who is an advisor to agencies and people working with podcasts. She gave us some good tips, and this is from her Inbound 16 talk. I know a few of you went last year. I don't know if you caught this one in particular, but it's on YouTube. If you search on YouTube for Jenny Butler Inbound 16, it's a very good talk about podcasts. And this is one of her slides which shows the move away from people listening to a podcast on the desktop to on their mobile device. So it's podcast being an audio file that you listen to just in your headphones. We do it with video, like Mark showed, we film them as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the podcast itself, even if it's just a video that you're only listening to, like that's what some people do with our podcast, you can listen to it on your phone. So 71% of people, the vast majority of people, on a mobile device, whereas before they were in the minority just 4 years ago. Because it's habits, people are listening to them commuting, in the car, on the tube. You might have come across like an internet thing, almost a bit of a meme last year of you look around on the tube and everyone's got headphones in, and it turned out everybody was listening to podcasts, not to music. And then obviously it's just the way things are. The rest of the country follows suit after habits in London, and that's why those numbers are coming up, for whatever that reason is, but still people are listening to them on tablets, phones and mobile. So I went to look for a stat just to back that up in terms of how popular they are. So I googled how popular are podcasts in the UK, and I thought this was an even better stat to show how mainstream and everybody's listening to them it actually is. Top result is iTunes podcast charts. So if you ignore that one, but the next 3 are lifestyle, mainstream as you get websites, Esquire.com, GQ magazine and BuzzFeed. So 2 websites which tell you what to wear, where to be seen, what to eat and what to listen to. BuzzFeed just responds to popular culture and gives people lists about what they like, and they're all telling you which podcasts to listen to this year. So it's just a mainstream thing. And then a few people I spoke to yesterday were the same as me, didn't realise actually I am consuming podcasts in lots of different ways, whether it's sticking something on YouTube on your phone in the kitchen or in the car on the way home or whatever. People are doing it all the time, and it's just the norm and it's just happened. Yet we aren't making them as a whole. So some tools to get started. Hopefully that's just sold the idea to you. The rest of this presentation really is based on our own experience from 3 months of producing podcasts, and Jenny Butler, who is Senior Partner Support Specialist at HubSpot, but also just a podcast guru really. She came in, Mark managed to get her to come in as a guest on Inbound After Hours, our podcast, and this is using her insight there, our own findings, and her talk at Inbound 16. Mark did this similarly for video. You can set up completely for free. It's even cheaper for a podcast. A mic can be your phone, your computer if you're doing a screen share, on Skype or something like that. Or you can get something that Jenny recommended to us, which is this blue mic, which is again great quality, and it only costs I think £100. Editing tools are free, which I'll come to. Topics are free, which I'll come to. And your own time is a cost, technically, but you'd be doing a blog anyway, which has got lower engagement, less chance of being consumed, and therefore less chance of influencing somebody into your buyer's journey. If you spend that time making a quick podcast, then it's more likely to be able to get you some leads and start nurturing them. So they're the physical things, the mic and whatnot. Some resources to help. If you download the slides at the end, you can get these links, obviously. But these are some useful links which Jenny talked about at Inbound 16. She has got it's called Zoom. I don't know what the technical term is. Some of you will be able to tell me, but it's like a mixing device that you plug into your phone. It allows you to control the levels and reduce the background noise, control the bass and the treble and so on. But that's £100. It's like a little mixing table, but it's this big. She takes it everywhere in her pocket. Bluemic.com, that's a link for one of these. It looks pretty smart as well on video, I think. It's quite retro and smart, but it's the good mic quality, that's the main thing. Something that came out of discussions yesterday in Leeds. People are happy to watch a hazy video or where the lighting's washed out a little bit, and that's an easy fix. The audio is the main thing. If you put headphones in and it sounds like you're in a bathroom, that has to be pretty good content to get someone to stay listening. But at least if it's not harsh on your ear, because it's quite a harsh sound, isn't it, when you pick up something in an earphone, they're going to give you more time a day and get that value from listening to your podcast. So obviously the audio is the main thing. So a good mic, if you're going to make any expense, is the place to start. But then when it comes to resources for editing, you can get plenty of free ones. Audacity and Onion Podcasting, the third link, are 2 resources for editing the audio file afterwards, after you've recorded. Both free. I think Opinion Podcasting has a paid version, but that's an app for recording on your phone, editing on your phone, and publishing from your phone. And then the last link there is I think it's 4,500 word blog or something, all about starting podcasting using just your phone. It's got links, it's tested different softwares on different models of iPhones. Obviously, not all of them might not be, but some of the links in there will be Android as well. And it takes you through from sitting there not knowing what to talk about to publishing. So that's a good read. Like I said, download the slides when we share them, and then you can get those links very easily. Penultimate section, practical tips when starting podcasting, is building on what Mark said of learning from our mistakes, sharing them because we've learned from them. If you've not started doing podcasts or video yet, these are some of the things we've encountered. Some of the things that we've noticed have gone well and we've kept doing, and we just try and nip one thing in the bud each time, and it seems to be working. So we had to start with a topic for our podcast. We're a marketing agency, so our persona is a marketing manager or a marketing department or a business owner who needs marketing services. So that helped us to think of our general content topic. And then what we ended up doing, we've seen since in hindsight, is using Jenny Butler's CAST method of choosing a podcast topic. So what she says to do is, and it's quite right, it's hopefully something you do already anyway, is pick a content topic, a general content topic that is relevant to your audience. And then your audience can relate to the subject matter within that topic. They can relate to it. It's a pain point. It's something they're thinking about. It's something they're experiencing. And then The content should also be timely, so it's not out of date, but it's hopefully also timeless, that it won't go out of date either. I think the example Jenny used at Inbound was doing something about the election, how to market your candidate in the local area for the 2017 election. That's timely. If you remove the 2017 angle and use tips that are transcendent, it then becomes timeless as well, so it'll still hang around and be useful into the future. So we did that, and we decided to sit down and talk about inbound marketing, because that's what we do, that's what we've just been doing all day when we sit down with a beer and start recording. It makes it easy at our end, but also it's good for our persona. So whatever your persona is interested in, if you can talk about that topic in that way, you won't go far wrong. So then we've got the general topic sorted. So then you need something to talk about from show to show, and you get to coming up with show topics. And we literally, me, Mark and Andrew, if you've been before, you'll have met another inbound manager at Digital 22. We sat down for literally 5 minutes and came up with 3 months worth of show topics. So we started with, what have you been working on this week? I've been doing personas for so-and-so. Right, personas, what can we talk about in shows to do with personas? How do you find out social stuff? How do you find out this? How do you find out pain points? What have you been doing? We've been doing this. We ended up with a sheet of A4 that went on to 2 pages, and we've got 3 months of topics. Then what we do is an hour before the show, sometimes 2 minutes before the show, we decide what we're going to talk about. I've got some stats on that. Right, let's do that. And then that's the topic sorted. Because that's the feel we're going for, that relaxed chat, which comes in a semi-scripted format. So we tried at first coming up with a script. We took turns reading from the script, introducing the show. I sounded like a smooth FM DJ. Andrew and Ricky were a bit awkward with it as well. Mark turned out to be the best, so we make him do it every time. But what we've evolved over the few outtakes and weeks is just going to a semi-scripted basis. This works for us because it suits our personality. When we tried a script, we were too wooden and too false. When we tried completely scriptless, we were too knackered from work and we couldn't think of ideas, and it ended up being a 20-minute podcast and there wasn't enough content, because we want to hit that half-hour mark. So we've ended up going semi-scripted. We'll have a sheet, one Google sheet, and it'll say, hello, welcome to Inbound After Hours, ... And then you know to do an intro. Today we're talking about ... And then some questions just to have up your sleeve, or subheadings, just topics to talk about. And it just helps have a bit of structure to the half hour. And then when you know you're not coming out thinking, I forgot to mention that thing I wanted to talk about. We've just got a loose script. If you've ever seen like radio shows, when they put it on the red button, they have a script, even though they're ad-libbing and it's free talk. They have, in a 3-hour radio show, stacks of paper, and they read announcements off it and things like that, but they know what they're going to talk about, and it sounds all free rein, so it's just semi-scripting it. Mark covered the batteries one. Just make sure your phone, if you're doing it on your phone, make sure it's charged. Another good tip off buffer is if you're recording it on your phone, turn notifications off, put it into sleep mode, or not sleep mode, or airplane mode, do not disturb mode, yeah. It'll stop it pinging or distracting your Wi-Fi or whatever. And then lastly, big thing was echo. Something I mentioned briefly that was talked about yesterday was the audio being obviously important for videos, but even more for podcasts. So our office is in an old mill in Clitheroe, and the walls are bare stone, dead rebounded. I don't know what the official term is, but it bounces back, echoing, yeah. So it sounds like you're recording it in the bathroom at home. So what we did was we brought in a beanbag, a coat stand with a few jackets on. Other things you can do is just put some plants in there, or some soft blinds or curtains, anything soft that will absorb some of the sound. Obviously, if you want to go and spend more money, you can put proper sound boards on the wall. But you saw from the HubSpot video with Brian, they just have a room and they've put some books in there, some plants, some soft seats, and that's to just reduce that echo and just make that sound a bit crisper. The other thing is a good mic will help reduce that. So that was one reason why we stepped up on the mic. So that's coming up to recording, coming up with a topic, semi-scripting, and then the actual recording of it. So then afterwards there's editing and sharing to be done, which is another, if you can get over the aspect of going on mic, which we have, Still can't watch or listen to myself, but I don't mind doing it. And I think we all feel pretty similar. The best thing about podcasts, in my opinion, and I know the people have said the same, is it's a relaxing chat that you're just involved in. It's not a lecture. It's not you're not being talked at 100 mile an hour like a vlog on YouTube. It's not quick cut changes. It's 4 people talking, or whatever ours is, 4 people talking about marketing and stuff we've experienced and how we've solved it and how we're getting on, and hopefully that's the same thing our persona is struggling with and resonates with that. So then it'd be daft to then go and edit out all the false starts, the missed points, or the what am I on about there, I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on. Keeping that natural makes it a more relatable, engaged package. So don't edit out the fact that this is a natural conversation. And I mentioned 30 minutes is what we're aiming for, or 30-minute chunks, because that's a typical time to listen to. And if you've got a long commute, you can fit in a couple of podcasts. If you're on the tube for half an hour, people listen to them in half an hour. And it's when you get home and walk the dog, or in the morning walk the dog for half an hour, you can listen to it then, or cooking tea. It's something that you can just have on, listening to in the background whilst you're doing things, and 30 minutes works quite well.
Are there any stats to wrap up the timing? Any stats to say that's kind of perfect time to aim for?
I've not got the stats to hand, but I've read studies. I'll find some. When we were looking into it, we did find that half hour was what to aim for, just for that reason. I'll dig the links out, but yeah, when we share the slides, I'll add it into the notes. Yeah.
So if I think about when and how I listen to podcasts, and maybe the people in this room, I'm bored in the car, I'm cooking, I've got half an hour, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, definitely not. I mean, if I go through, I religiously go through Gary Vee's podcast, and I skip every single one that's an hour. I skip all the keynotes some of the time. So I would, again, it starts about completely back up that.
That's the other thing as well. We read it, and we were thinking that.
Yeah.
We read a couple of studies, and we're like, right, yeah, fine. That backs it up. So I've not kept them, but I'll dig them out. But yeah, it is as much based on that as what would I want to listen to. It's half an hour. It's just our tip. If anyone's found better, then do put them in the group on LinkedIn, and we can all share them.
Yeah, called Jason Swain, who told us to do it.
I think that is still a serious investment for me to put 30 minutes of my time into that. Are there anything? Is it usual to have just 10 minutes?
There's some. It's just different packages. So what I've been talking about there for 30 minutes is it's like a mini radio show, we're supposed to treat it as. And people don't listen to all of it, like Mark showed on the video. They'll listen to a bit, move on to the next one. I know I do that when I'm consuming them. If I don't like it, you turn it off. Listen to next week's instead.
How far do you live from where you work? Half an hour.
Yeah.
There you go.
Still, it's my whole way. I have an option to listen to music.
Yeah, exactly.
Something entertaining, or then something business related for 30 minutes. Yeah.
I suppose
It was you who left the comment.
Well, yeah, maybe it's my only time in the day to be able to research this issue. So maybe I'll get into
You're only going to listen to stuff you're interested in.
That's it.
So you're not going to do.
What if you found one that ticked the box of entertaining me on the way to work, and it helped me in my job as well? Then it's double whammy, isn't it? If for argument's sake we produce a podcast that you said, I'm not listening to work for that, that's our fault, isn't it? That's not our problem. Sorry, it's not your problem, it's our fault.
I think what we're saying as well is if you're going to spend 2 hours writing a blog, just try this. You'll see the stats in the coming slides. Just spend that 2 hours doing a podcast, transcripting it, and you've got your blog. Just try it, and you'll see it works.
Yeah, and that's what I mean there with the blog and social. We talk about it for half an hour, literally 5 minutes topic, coming up with it before it, 35 minutes, 5 minutes to go to the bar. Mark edits it for a couple of hours. Ricky does the blog for. We've already talked about it, so half an hour. There's a bit of a delay waiting for the transcript. A few minutes taking out Guy in red jumper and putting Paul. Then we put a read-friendly version of what we've talked about on the blog post as well, just in case somebody is listening at work and thinks, I can't listen to these northern accents, what are they on about? I'll read it instead, and share it on social. And then just from that, you've gone from having the package, we video it as well, so that's sort of like another option. You've got the audio version, then you've got the read version. And the read version is also pleasing Google as well.
Something I've sort of written down as an action from this for me is that I personally think 30 minutes is fine, but actually I think if you take it back to who your persona is and who your buyer is, if you deal with a lot of lawyers earn quite good money and probably live in a city centre apartment 5 minutes from their office and don't have half an hour.
Yeah.
So what I'm taking from this is I'm going to go speak to 10 customers now and say to them, how far do you live from work, just a podcast, how long do you commute?
Yeah.
If they'll come back and say 7 minutes, I'm not wrong, I like something else. But I think what I would say in response to that question before is that speak to your customers, speak to the people that your audience will be. And
sorry, yeah, taking from that, I think that's the most important thing. Think about not only, well, obviously your audience and also the type of business that you do. For example, for us, our marketing agencies, we know who our persona is. It's probably like a mid-level, like senior kind of person who probably will spend their time after work thinking of ways of doing stuff. However, if you're like a pop or you're actually your biggest target is to have weddings, it's pretty hard to actually create that content and expect people to create an actual audience from it that will come back to you always more like every time.
You could experiment as well though, can't you? So say the wedding example, I'm going through that buyer's journey at the minute, and I can imagine my fiancée giving 20 minutes, but if she finds one that she likes and likes listening to, where you're talking about weddings and ideas, 20 minutes might be perfect for that at home. It's the persona, isn't it? Going back to your persona.
an example is one where, and you're probably going to talk about it, I'm getting married in November and my fiancée hacks my head far too much about my wedding. And I'm getting asked to make decisions on like what socks I'm wearing.
You
I'm
have
married in
no
November. I would, I'm not going to listen to a podcast with her, but I'd probably sit on the couch and half an hour while she watches a YouTube podcast. And I think she'll probably go into recording versus audio shortly, maybe.
Yeah, well, we'll do it now. Yeah, so we video it. I won't do it because we've got the screen share on. But if you look at, I've got it up yesterday. We've got a different setup here. On the blog, we host it on Wistia, obviously, with a video version. But then we've got a podcast file itself on SoundCloud and an RSS feed on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn, so that wherever anybody listens to their podcasts, they can. Or what's most common is people watch it on our blog page, and it's got the video on there. So the way I consume most of them myself is in a minimised tab at work, and it's a video, it's a YouTube video, or I'll put a YouTube video on the phone on the side at the kitchen, and I'll listen to what's going on, listen to a TED Talk or whatever, and I'm treating that as a podcast, but it's actually a video. Just giving the options. I think Mark mentioned it. Just for the sake of setting up an RSS feed, give them the option to listen to it how they want. But the main point is the persona. Sam touched on it, and it's what your persona wants. If you go back to just generally speaking, people want their content in video and podcast. That's why everybody, I imagine, has come to find out more about that today. People are fed up of reading, attention spans are shorter. People want to consume videos and listen to things. So why not put your content that way? It's just, it's the way people want their content. So whatever age. And then these are the stats really, it's a good time for that. I'll just jump to that now. Basically we started in April started publishing podcasts in May. No viewers, never done it before. We have a vlog and a podcast of the same event. But this is just the podcast stats, just the audio file. So we've gone from like green being the total figures per month in May, about 30, and I think 15 of them were my family. And but then the track, this was 1 week into July, and we've done one every week since, and it's compounding to give us a projected figure of around 500 by the end of July, listening just 3 months in. And that's just in our little niche. I don't know where that ceiling is, but that's 500 people who wouldn't have read a blog. 400 of them people wouldn't have come across our blog, for argument's sake. But then the benefit that we haven't got the stats for yet because we haven't dug deep enough, but people have then read blog views off the back of it. There's your links down the side, they wander around your site, they watch other videos and other content that you've produced. It's also been good for email opens because we've been sending a blog every month, a blog roundup that people have either listened to, read the odd one or just phase it out, save it for later if I ever need it. When it comes in with a piece of visual content, because that's what people want, or audio content, it increases opens on that. It's also increased social engagement, yeah.
How many podcasts have you produced and put out there?
So that, I think May was a 5-week month, so there'll be 5 in that, 4 in June. One a week, yeah.
10's published.
10 is it?
Yeah.
10 we're at, 10 weeks in. Yeah.
So subscribers are increasing, so iTunes, if I listen to podcasts, I'll get notifications that come through on my phone as well, push notifications, it activates that. So it's compounding now, same as we see with our blog 3 years ago when we didn't think it would. See the compound, it's the same trend. So we're excited to see what happens in 6 months.
And like I said, you don't lose anything, do you? You lose half an hour and, a bit of editing time. There's nothing lost.
Thanks, guys.